As today's testimony will reveal, my team and I tried our best to get the SEC to investigate and shut down the Madoff Ponzi scheme with repeated, incredible warnings to the SEC that started in May 2000 when the Madoff Ponzi scheme was only a $3 to $7 billion fraud. We knew then that we had provided enough red flags and mathematical proofs to the SEC for them where they should have been able to shut him down right then and there at under $7 billion. But, unfortunately, the SEC staff lacks the financial expertise and is incapable of understanding the complex financial instruments being traded in the 21st century. In October 2001, when Madoff was still in the $12 to $20 billion range, again, we felt confident that we had provided even more evidence to the SEC such that he should have been stopped at well under $20 billion. And again, in November 2005, when Mr. Madoff was at $30 billion, 29 red flags were handed to the SEC, and yet again, they failed to properly investigate and shut down Mr. Madoff's operation. Unfortunately, as they didn't respond to my written submissions in 2000, 2001, 2005, 2007, and 2008, here we are today. A fraud that should have been stopped at under $7 billion in 2000 has now grown to $50 billion. In order to compartmentalize the damage, if Mr. Madoff found out that we were tracking him, Mr. Madoff was already facing life in prison if he were caught, so he'd face little to no downside to removing whatever threat he felt we posed. At various points in time throughout these past 9 years, each of us feared for our lives. Each time any of us collected information, we took risks, and fortunately for us, we were not discovered. Sadly, the SEC distrusts anyone with industry experience. I am very surprised that the SEC did not fire Mr. Mannion for his constant pestering about Mr. Madoff. The SEC to this day holds against him the fact that he kept bringing this case to their attention, and I believe he would be fired if he ever went public and told investors how strong an advocate he was on their behalf. Since Mr. Madoff's operation was located in New York City, the New York regional office had jurisdiction. In 2000, Mr. Mannion warned me that relations between the New York and Boston regional offices was about as warm and friendly as the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry, and that New York does not like to receive tips from Boston. Truer words were never spoken. There was no centralized office of the whistleblower in Washington, staffed with industry professionals who knew how to determine if whistleblower complaints being submitted were credible and of sufficient quality to merit immediate investigation. Instead, I had to go through the Boston SEC regional office, which had to forward me to the New York regional office. Unfortunately, these two offices did not get along, and I wasn't able to go directly to the SEC's headquarters in Washington and have them referee and lead this entire process. In April 2008, I went to the SEC's Director of Risk Assessment with this case and got no response. I told the SEC exactly where to look, providing them with a long series of clear warnings that any trained investment professional would have immediately understood. Inexplicably, the SEC never acted upon those repeated and multiple warnings over a 9-year time span. As my formal written testimony makes clear, the SEC is over-lawyered and has too few staff with relevant industry experience and professional credentials to find fraud, even when a multi-billion-dollar case is handed to them on a silver platter. The SEC is also captive to the industry it regulates, and it is afraid of bringing big cases against the largest, most powerful firms. Mr. Madoff was one of the most powerful men on Wall Street. He owned a prestigious brokerage firm. He and his brother held numerous top-level positions on the most influential industry association boards. Clearly, the SEC was afraid of Mr. Madoff. No one from the SEC has stepped forward to admit personal responsibility. Instead, all we've heard is one senior official after another saying that they cannot comment about the Madoff investigation because it is ongoing, telling us that they receive thousands of tips each year and that they have to conduct triage and can only respond to the highest priority matters. I gift-wrapped and delivered the largest Ponzi scheme in history to them, and somehow they couldn't be bothered to conduct a thorough and proper investigation because they were too busy on matters of higher priority. If a $50 billion Ponzi scheme doesn't make the SEC's priority list, then I want to know who sets their priorities.